What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and today we are going to be talking about building your catalog and making comics to the point where you can actually maybe make something out of it, too. And today we have Mr. Javier Hernandez. How you doing, man?
Very good. It's good to be on here, Marshall. I've known you I was trying to think how long I've known you. It's been years and years and years, and it's great to be on your show there, man. You do a lot of great content, talking to a lot of artists about, you guys get into the nitty-gritty of art and the business and just trying to survive. So, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Hey, we try our best to, and I noticed we got some friends in the chat already. We got Declan Sargent, we got Jim Lujan, friend of both of us. What's up, Jim? And we got Los Comics. Who's that? I don't know who Los Comics TV is.
Wow, a real show. What is going on here?
Just so you guys know, that is Mr. Javier Hernandez himself on YouTube. He's got some cool videos as well. You got to check it out. And we got our other friends, Clay, Ronnie's here. Everybody's coming in and hanging out with us. What's up, everybody? And today I wanted to talk about, well, I already said I wanted to talk about kind of building your projects, but something that is pretty cool is my buddy here, Javier, has done just that. He's built a lot of catalog of some of his different varying comics. And Javier, let people know, first of all, where they can find you, and let them know about your latest project that you're working on right now.
Yeah, so I'm an independent comic creator. What do we call it? Self-published, small press, DIY. Do it all on my own. It's under my own imprint, Los Comics. I've been doing that for 22 years, starting in 1998. For all you, all the youngsters out there. So, and yeah, I write and draw my work. The main character I've been known for the last 22 years is El Muerto. We'll talk about that. But like Marshall said, I've done other comics. Sometimes it's like a scratch. I got an itch. I got this idea for this other character, so let me do it. And I like to do like characters. I'm not, some people do like they have a story they want to do, whether it's autobio, historical, or just like a slice of life. I for lack of a better word, I do what super characters. Right? These superpower characters with super problems. Very Marvel style super problems, but I like doing like really just cool, exciting, fantastical adventures, but I always like to give my characters those secret identities that where they're very real people, or at least they have the same problem issues that we go through every day, right? Breakups, or new romances, or falling in and out of love, or sitting in the drive-through line at Taco Bell and you can't get the speaker good, like regular human problems. So, and I've some of the comics I've done over the years, the Coma, Dead Dinosaurio, Urusans, Weapon Tex-Mex. But like I said, primarily this guy behind me here, El Muerto. I started doing that comic because I had wanted to do comics for years. It kind of started late. I think most people, by looking at social media, you got these people, teenagers in the early 20s, which is great. But I had wanted to do comics kind of as a kid. But living out here in Los Angeles in the 70s, I could only read about in the comic books, like I'd see an ad for like, oh wow, what's this Joe Kubert school? Oh, that's New Jersey. That's like on the other side of the world, like I'm not gonna have parents just, no way they're gonna send me over there. So, okay, never mind. Maybe comics, maybe we don't do comics here on the West Coast. You're a kid, you don't know any better. Then you get older and like, hey, comics.
Whittier to New Jersey, huh?
Yes, crack research team. Yes, Whittier, yeah. So to say that's great. Yeah, so of course in my 20s you start discovering, the independent comics explosion, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You learn about the Hernandez brothers doing Love and Rockets, self-published, and then they get picked up by Fantagraphics. That book was really key because that was one of the books that showed me, yeah, you know what? here's these Mexican American guys, the comics that grew up on Daffy Duck to Steve Ditko, you know, the whole run. But they wanted to do stories kind of based on people from their neighborhoods, as they called it. So between the Hernandez brothers and then other people I had met in the early mid '90s, some other South publishers were doing their own comics. Dominguez in Texas doing Gato Negro, Carlos Saldana in Los Angeles doing Burrito, and others. That really helped and like kind of re-inspire me. Not just like I could do something, you know, be from a Mexican background, but just the idea of self publishing. I mean, really, the Turtles really broke that open. Like, you know what, anyone really can do a comic and then put some money together, print out a black and white copy, and put it out, and now you got a comic, kid. You know, it's easier than mounting a movie project or something. So that's what, you know, I got started in '98 doing the comics, and some said just building the catalog. At the time, you don't call it a catalog. You just say like, oh, I got a new idea. I got a new character I want to do. And then 22 years later, you look back, oh, dang. It's a lot of comics I got in my little short box here of stuff I've done and other things I've branched off into here and there. So, and, you know, 22 years later, you know, much older now. And like I said, probably much older age than probably most people self-publishing or on the higher end of it. But man, the fire I have in me right now and like the plans I have, it's like kind of like, you know, that carrot in front of yourself all the time, because like, well, I still want to get out and reach it. So got plenty more ideas, plenty more gas in the tank, and
wow.
let's see if we get another 22 years out of this.
Wow. So 22 years and you still got the fire. I like that.
I think it's come back. Maybe I think there was kind of like you know, maybe after the first 5 years, you know, I don't say a slump, but like, okay, because you know, you realize you weren't doing Turtles numbers, you weren't doing Spawn numbers, but then you recalibrate, like, okay, well, not everybody does, and are you doing what you love? Is the stuff you're putting out what you want to put out? Yes, yes, yes. You know, answers all yes, yes, yes. So, and then I get back in the groove of doing stuff, and then I'm looking at it now, you know, some years ago. Okay, now I know to be realistic of the goal. You're not going to be the number one person, you know, necessarily, or you know, even all. But that doesn't mean you're setting your. That doesn't mean you're knocking yourself down. It's just you're just being realistic, you know.
Yeah, no doubt. And I might have missed it, but did you mention your Kickstarter that you're doing right now?
No, I didn't. I wanted to take a breath and let you get in there too. It's your show. Thanks. Yeah. So this is 22 years. This is my first crowdfunding. So definitely my first Kickstarter. In fact, I think one of the early times I met Marshall, I think you might have. I used to do for the last 10 years, I'm doing pre-orders on my comics, where I put up, you know, have a new comic, and go, hey guys, this new comic's coming out. Go to my web store and you can, you know, buy it, and then I'll send it out when it comes out. And I did about maybe, I don't know, 8, 9 of those, and the orders would be really small, which is interesting because, like, you know, this whole social media thing, like, you put up a picture of something, you get like 50, 100 likes. That doesn't mean you're going to get 100 sales. You know, it just doesn't mean that. And I'm the same way. It's so easy for me to like something. But anyway, so, you know, I thought this year there's a lot of reasons why I want to try a Kickstarter. Some of it is, let's just look at the current situation, you know, with everything canceled. Like, just talk about our community. Comic conventions, you know, they stopped whenever in March or April. And it looks like it's, for the most part, it's going to be the whole year. And I even started hearing about some January shows. So just the reality of it, you know, whatever you think about this. But so that, not going to do comic shop signings. Again, comic shops are closed. I don't know if I want to be out there, honestly, even if we're all wearing masks and visors and, you know what I mean? Like, you know. So let me look at Kickstarter as not just a fundraiser and get new audience, but that Kickstarter, I said, that's my convention circuit for the year. So I'll come to you in the mailbox, get a package, depending on what you get, or a box, like I said, if you're a high roller, and you'll get my new stuff. I got 3 new titles I have, and I've had a Kickstarter phobia, and I'm sure you've talked to a lot of Kickstarter people. this might be a term. I had Kickstarter failure phobia. Like, well, I want to put it out there, and then you put it out in the crickets for 30 days, or you get a few people, and then so for years I go, you know what, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna do one, but I gotta do it for the right project. And then I got a new book or a new graphic novel, and I'm thinking, well, that could have been the right project. So like this year, like a lot of things align. Like, okay, damn it, enough of the phobia. Try it. And like I said, it's my convention placement thing. And, I do want to reach out to new audiences. I know Kickstarter does that. So, as a... Go ahead. Well, I was going to say one last thing on Kickstarter. So I've backed, I was shocked when I looked at my profile. I've backed like about 65 or now 68 Kickstarters over the years, which shocks me. I didn't realize so many. But I bring that up only because, so I was very familiar. I'm so familiar with how it works as a consumer. I support you. I pick the level I want based on what you're offering, and then you finish it, and I get it. And I got it, and most of the Kickstarter projects, I was looking through the list. I go, yeah, you know what? I had never heard of that person before I found out about. So, being Kickstarter puts your work in front of just completely new people. So that's just another reason why I decided to do it. So that's what brings me to actually, but I'm on the last 3 days of the Kickstarters. Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah, but it can be a long trek. Let's see. I'm just gonna mute you a little bit here sometimes when I'm talking, just because there's some feedback, but I'll always put you back on. So one thing that I think is interesting, well, basically, first of all, everybody, like he said, this is 3 days, left to do this. So definitely go over there and help support. And I mean, I've bought multiple times. I've bought stuff from Javier because I love what he does. If you love old school comics, especially like the old Marvel stuff, Kirby, Steve Ditko. One thing is Javier is a huge fan of Steve Ditko. He's even made his own books about Steve Ditko. And also, just the link is in the description. You got to go check it out. El Muerto has a really cool history, indie comics history. He's done many issues. There's even a movie of it, which is really cool. I love the movie. And also, so there's a link in the description, so check that out. And we got a comment from Frank, a friend of Frank here. I remember when Gato Negro came out, it made the papers because the creator. So you got somebody who knows where you're coming from there, I think, Javier. And then also, he says, if you build it, they will buy it. What do you think about that? Do you think that's true?
Yes, definitely. Really quick, Salazar Art Nation. Yeah, I was talking about being in. You can hear me, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Cool. When I was, I don't know, research is the right word, but I was okay. I'm going to publish. Oh, Muerto, I'm going to do it. And I started looking what's out there. That's how I discovered these guys I mentioned, Richard Dominguez and Carlos Saldana. I read an article in Hispanic magazine. I was at the Long Beach Library looking at the magazines, and I saw Hispanic Business or whatever Hispanic magazine. And I'm looking through it, and I saw this picture of this comic, El Gato Negro, the black cat. And yeah, it's an article about Richard Dominguez, self-published. So that was like, that's where I learned, okay, Mexican Americans are self-publishing their own comics, their own ideas. So he built it, and I came to him, right? I got that comic. So yeah, you build it, they will come. I think we all know this. I mean, just like everything we look at, there's like an audience for everything. Like I'm surprised on stuff, right? Like, there's audience for cupcakes. There's audience for, I don't know, unicorn fan fiction. I mean, you name it. There's audience for comics. We know that for a fact. There's an audience for indie comics, black and white comics, quirky superhero comics. There's also an audience for Latino comics, whether the reader's Latino or not. People like to see, hey, let's see stories set in like this vast world of Latino culture. And, it's so vast. It's not just one thing. So I know for a fact there's an audience for that because I told you I've been here 22 years. Like a lot of that audience has definitely supported my work and look forward to more work. And there's way more people. There's way more Latino creators independent today than there was when I started. And it just it keeps getting bigger and bigger. More people just get inspired.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're still coming. They're still coming.
So how was that experience when you first created El Muerto and trying to get that out there? Did the audience come right away, or was it big work? Or
Oh no. This is pre-internet. For the most part, the social networking wasn't anywhere near this. We had MySpace, maybe that was the big deal. No, I had to go look in my area. Like here, like adjacent to LA, Whittier, the hamlet of Whittier, California. Which any of you Masters of the Universe fans, if you see the Masters of the Universe movie, it's filmed in here when they're racing up and down the streets. That's Greenleaf, Uptown Whittier, where I used to shop for comics. But
oh wow,
I'll come back and talk about that one day. I'll do commentary on the movie from my point of view. But
that'd be cool.
no. So yeah, awesome. Like my comic El Muerto, it's based on really quick. It's about this young man. He's born Day of the Dead, November 2nd. He dies on his 21st birthday, and he gets resurrected by a pair of Aztec gods. So that's the Latino culture I'm talking about. I wanted to do a comic using Aztec mythology, which you didn't see a lot of in comics in '98. And I wanted to bring in Day of the Dead in comics, which you saw like very little in comics. Day of the Dead was already out in the, especially the Southwest, a lot of larger Latino communities. The festival was really big. But we didn't have movies on Day of the Dead back then, like the excellent Coco or Life, or you couldn't go to your local Target and Walmart and buy Day of the Dead, lawn decorations and party favors. That was not a big thing back then. So that was what the comic's about. And to answer your question, I had to go find the audience. So I went to comic shops, I went to comic book conventions. And here's a tip for any independent creator of whatever the book is. Like, where can I go sell this book at besides comic fans? Well, I need Latino audiences. So I used to go to all the local Latino bookstore, cultural stores in my area. And these are like books in English mostly, appealing to like that American Latino audience. So I went to bookstores like that, and it was a no-brainer. Well, I better go set up at Latino cultural festivals, Latino art festivals. They have the dead events, obviously. So for me, that worked because that's what the character is about, right? This dead guy, Day of the Dead. So I was able, because of the property, was able to go stuff like that. So I'd recommend anybody, if you have a baseball comic, maybe go to a baseball game or at least baseball related events or whatever your book's about. So yeah, Marshall, I just had to get smart about it. I just had to go, where can I put this book in front of an audience's eyeballs, and who is that audience and where do they go? So
awesome.
But it's all work. You got to do it. You got to go out there. You got to knock on the doors of the stores. You got to, back in the day, those local magazines on Latino culture. So I remember sending a copy of my comic. And then a few months later, I go to the store, look at that magazine, like, oh my God, I reviewed my comic. Like, I still got a copy of that magazine.
Oh, that's awesome. That's pretty cool.
But look for your audience. Look for your audience,
Absolutely. And like we kind of mentioned, you started to somehow you built up your audience enough to where you got enough attention to where somebody actually wants to make a movie about it. But I'm sure people will be curious about that. Let people know a little bit about how that kind of came about.
Yeah, it was an interview I did. Actually, someone from NPR, believe it or not. He was looking to interview. Yeah, I know. I was like, let's start at the top. He was looking to interview Latino creators, comic creators. This guy was ahead of his time, I think, as far as like spotlighting Latino creators. So this was at San Diego Comic-Con 2001. Yeah, 2001. came to my table, he sat next to me, did an interview with microphone, blah, 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 5-10 minutes, and he left. Like, okay, well, that's 10 minutes out of my day. It's a 40 show, a lot of stuff going on. That was great that I did it. But I kind of just put out of my head, like, okay, well, what's the chance of me listening to NPR the exact day and time that airs, right? I probably had his contact info, but I don't remember if I followed up with him. I was just glad to do it, which I'm glad I did. Because when they did air it, whatever, okay, two later, one of the people who heard it was Brian Cox, not the actor from X-Men 2. Everybody always like, oh, the Striker, right? This is an independent film director and producer. He heard the interview and, caught his interest, whatever I said. And eventually they got a hold of me, and then they asked to buy some of the comics. And then this is like, I'm dragging the process, I'm compressing it. Things take months and months in Hollywood, or years. Yeah. And then he liked it. I went to a meeting with him. He picked my brain. He had a lot of questions I didn't have answers to be honest, because I was still early on in making, putting out that first issue without having really like detailed the whole history of it for myself. But I was just honest with them, right? I could have played that BS Hollywood game. Oh yeah, that's what's going to happen. I go, I hadn't thought about that yet, or I'm not sure where I might go with this. So maybe he appreciated that honesty, because I'm sure he listens to people BS him all the time with their pitches. So eventually I had to get a lawyer, because, don't do anything without a contract. Please, I beg you guys, do not. No matter how simple you think it is or how nice they are, it has nothing to do with either of those. You don't know what's... I read it, I didn't understand half of it. So, lawyer, please tell me what this is. Please do that. And then eventually he got a producer attached to it, and then the producer had some investors. It was very lucky on our part. Like, the director had a producer friend, and the producer happened to have had these investors sitting on the side, like waiting to do a film with him, right? Hey, producer, we want to make a movie one day. We're interested. We got money. So then the producer, investors together with the director, me and the comic, and then boom, there was a movie deal. And then next thing I know, we're this 2001. I told you the initial interview. 2003, I signed the contract. 2004 came and went, but they had to pay me again, because that's what happens when they lose the rights. So it's always good if a couple of years go by when nothing happens, because they want to keep the property, so they pay you. Gotcha. And then the following year in 2005, it's like, oh shoot, we got him up again. We better start making that movie. So we made the film about 6 weeks with our star Wilmer Valderrama from that 70s show at the time, and I cameo in the film myself, associate producer on the film. I did the artwork for the main titles. And here we are. I don't know how many years later, 2007, 13 years later, I got a movie and some comics in my back pocket. It's pretty interesting. Pretty
cool. And I don't know if it's still there now or not, but I remember it popped up on Netflix at one point, and I watched it on there.
Yeah, the early years of Netflix, it popped up on there. I remember getting emails throughout the day, could be at 10 at night, or wake up, it was an email one night like, oh, we saw your movie last night. Oh, yeah, I saw it. Wow, that's pretty cool.
So awesome. Oh. So, what's interesting, too, is there's a lot of people out there who make comics for the purpose of get into making a movie. And that's what happened here, which I think is really cool. You got a guy here who's inspired by, comics, music, things like that. He's just making what he loves, happens to do a little interview, just doing what he wants to do, and the thing happens. And it's like, wow, what a cool experience. And all you really probably are is grateful. Like, it's a fun thing, And they actually made the movie, too, because a lot of times people will pitch their comic, they'll sell the pitch, or the screenplay, or whatever you call it, and then, they'll never actually make the movie. And it actually got made, so that's really cool, too.
Yeah, thanks. I suspect, because we don't know unless the person announces it, I suspect the majority of, creators who have sold their their media rights for that, like that. Again, it's always for a year, so they have a year to do the first film. If they don't, they got to. I bet you there's a lot more that it's cool. They got money, and then they get the property back because film was made or no film was. They didn't screw up the comic by making a terrible movie out of it, but yeah, it was from day one. Again, I don't know anything about at the time Hollywood or maybe I was just naive or hopeful. I just always assumed it was going to happen. The minute, not when the director was talking to me, who by the way we're still friends to this day. We have our complete trust and respect. It's when the producer came aboard and he had those investors, because I met the investors. There was this gentleman, Bruno, and his two sons, Bruno Leone and his two sons. They were so to me, like, again, people can just drop out, but I'm like thinking in my head, well, okay, I met these guys. They got the money that they want to make the movie. The producer, they want to make a movie, and the producer's writing me up with the contract and such. So it's just like, yeah, it's gonna happen. Yeah. Although you should always be cautious because you announce it and then a year later everybody, hey, where's that movie? Oh, it fell apart. So I was always, like I said, maybe it was naivety, but like, I don't know. They told me they're gonna make it. Why wouldn't I believe them? So yeah. And I made the comic with no aspirations at the time in those mid 90s, 96, 97, as I worked on it. No, like, oh, I hope they make a movie out of this. Yeah. In every comic I've done, I always look at it like, I don't know. I mean, I know people can do the pitches as a movie, the comic. If you can, I know do. That's fine. Me as a creator, someone who loves the comic book medium, just the comics I've read and just reading about the great creators who've made why they make them, it's just so much fun to focus on story without worrying about stupid stuff like, well, let me redesign the costume so it looks like those stupid, the X-Men costumes, like they got the ribbing on the inside so it can, like, who cares about that? Who cares that it could bend better in the knees or the elbow, like when you're drawing it, so you draw the extra. And when I see costumes like that, I think that's just so dumb. Like, oh, it's functional. Like, make the costume, and if there's a movie out of it, they will adapt it. Look at all the films that every comic book movie, the costumes adapted for the most part. Some worse than others. Some.
They have designers on set. They have all their people. Like, make them work for that. That's their job. Your job is to make a cool comic.
Yeah, that only I could do because I'm the writer artist. I was doing this one comic years ago called The Coma. It's about this guy.
I love that.
He's in a coma. Yeah, thanks. That's one of the early ones I put out as a pre-order. I remember, like, hey, Marshall's getting one of these. It's about a guy. He's in a coma, but in his head, in this coma world, he can travel through everybody's dreams. Right, that concept of universal subconsciousness, whatever. But one day I was drawing like all the weird dimensional stuff, trying to be Doctor Strange. And I remember one time thinking like, oh wow, I wonder how they would do that in the film. But then I go, well, that'll be their problem or my problem later if I'm working on it. So I took that out of my head. I got back to just doing what I could do with my pencil and my Pentel pocket brush pen and my crazy brain. Who cares? Besides, nowadays they can do anything on screen with digital. I mean, there is nothing they can't bend or warp or color or whatever. So don't worry about that when you're making a comic, unless that's what you're doing the comic for. And who are we to judge, right?
Yeah, and after seeing things like Doctor Strange and Ant-Man, I'm sure that they'd be able to pull it off. Hey, look,
that's right.
We got another friend here. Jose Gonzalez, how you doing? Long time no chat.
Wow, that is a name I remember in our early days when I'm talking to people like you or Jersey Droz or Christian Estevez. It's like, 15 years ago, we all kind of podcast together, and it's kind of neat. So I remember, Jose. Nice to see you here, sir. Wow.
Yes, sir. It's been a while, man. I'm glad you came by to check it out, and so what else one thing I think is interesting is, like, again, you've been very much influenced by kind of the old, I think Marvel comics and probably DC as well, I would imagine. Definitely Ditko. Tell us a little bit about your kind of passion for Ditko and what he's done.
Yeah, about that Marvel comic comment. Yeah, I grew up in the '70s, so they call it Bronze Age. So there was a really, it was obviously built in on the '60s stuff, but there was a really big emphasis in the Bronze Age on a lot of new heroes like Werewolf by Night and some of these like these tortured, haunted heroes. They're regular people with enough regular problems, but then they have, they turn into this pseudo monster, this creature, this, avenging do-gooder, and just trying to balance the life. But there was like a darker, more macabre aspect to a lot of the '70s characters, at least the ones I really liked. Son of Satan, Werewolf by Night, the Man Wolf. Anyway, so I've always loved that tortured hero. I mean, the Incredible Hulk TV show, Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno, that is like that's probably a huge influence. The more, every time I think of El Muerto, what I'm doing, it's this guy, Bruce Banner, David Banner, he's a doctor. So they have an oath to, right, always help, heal people, take care of them, no matter what. And he's on the run because he's the Hulk and the media's after him, Jack McGee. And he's always exposing himself. Like he should maybe leave the town, but he met this woman and she's having these problems, or he met this young person and they're so, he helps people to a fault, because then he sticks around too long. He turns to the Hulk and everything. Then he has to leave anyway. I don't know why something like that appeals to me so much. Which a lot of people say, well, that's not good. You should just get the hell out of there. But, someone helping people, someone sacrificing themselves to help someone, then they should probably get the heck out of there, get out of town to save their own skin. It's great drama. So I think a lot of El Muertos take it from that. Steve Ditko, he passed away, a couple years ago. Finally, I didn't mean that. I mean, like, after a super long life, he passed away basically on the drawing board. He was still making comics. So he had like a 65 plus career. That's amazing. Co-creator of Spider-Man. He's the original artist of Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, the Blue Beetle, the Creeper. He's been most independent most of his life. Like, even when he was doing Spider-Man in the '60s, at the end of the '60s, he was doing these independent comics, self-published comics. In the late '60s, I mean, right? Like, he had done Spider-Man a few years earlier, like the top comic in the world. Yet he had these ideas he wanted to do no matter what, even if a publisher didn't want to do it. So, and then the last 35 years of his life, he was basically self-publishing with his friend and partner, Robin Snyder. They were actually doing Kickstarters for the last, maybe, I lost count, the last 20 books they did.
Yeah.
That's why I have such a high count when I have 68 Kickstarters. I think half of those are probably Ditko comics. But I've always admired Ditko's just like that independence, that complete burning single-mindedness, whatever you call it, to do your stories that you want. And in his case, almost like to hell with everything else. I'm obviously a social person. I definitely take advantage of the social media. I always have. I go to shows. I'm public. Ditko was more private. So I could follow my own path, art-wise, story-wise, but I definitely engage because I want to get the word out there for my comics. I have no problem. Obviously, I'm here talking to you. I have no problem speaking, sharing my enthusiasm, taking, any questions and whatever. So, yeah, Ditko's like a huge, a beacon, I guess, something worthy for me to follow as an artist, as far as a career path.
Yeah, and something that I think is interesting with Ditko is that he had kind of like philosophy. He had kind of messages that it seemed like he was really trying hard to express that directly through his comics. And I think it's interesting because when I read your comics, there always is some kind of message in there. There's always themes that are really interesting that go deeper than just, just superhero superhero comics. You know what I mean? And yeah, I don't know.
No, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, with Ditko, like a lot of his stuff, and what a lot of people criticized him for, some of the stories he would do. Not all. People make it sound like all he did was these like objectivist tracks because he was a fan or interested in the philosophy of Ayn Rand, the Fountainhead, Atlas Shrugged, the objectivism, the philosophy she founded. I don't follow that, and I'm not going to sit there and debate people about it, and I'm not going to debate people about why the hell did Ditko waste his time doing that? That's what he was into.
Yeah.
I could be an adult and go, yeah, I'm not into that, but I have no problem looking at the comics he does where he's working out the ideas, and it's not like people say like, oh, he's trying to convert you. I mean, that's just a stupid thing. He's not trying to convert you to it. He's presenting his facts the way he believes it. I hope everybody believes in something. He's trying to present something he believes in the story. If you don't dig it, you don't dig it. I can like because it's a story, and I've always loved the guy's art, and even as it progressed through his age, how it's simplified and such. What I try to do straight stories. I want to give the reader an actual story. Here are these characters, and again, they're comic book superheroes. I love drawing fanciful costumes and interesting, giving them all these cool names and powers. But yeah, like you're saying, there's I guess the glue in the story that puts it all together, that takes all the fantasy, the gods, demons, the fight scenes, the love scenes. The glue between that is hopefully like these heartfelt, emotional, real ideas that, like, if you attest to it, you can relate to, and other people can relate to. So, and I always appreciate when people tell me that. Yeah, a friend told me years ago, like, yeah, even your comics, they can be completely fantastic with like a pink werewolf and a blue dinosaur and a zombie guy and this and that. But there's always like this like humanity to each character, which to me that's like the best compliment, because I don't want to just have empty. It's not like just an action figure, it's just something cool to look at. You want to give it some meat, but I want to make sure people come into my comic like, hey, they're getting just a fun story, hopefully imaginative. I look at guys like John Carpenter, filmmaker, like damn, I just love sitting there and just show me your movie, John. It's such a damn great adventure. Maybe he's got a message, maybe I see it, maybe I don't. As long as I was entertained by those characters, and of course, the actors, the performance, the lighting, the special effects, humor, the scary shit he's in there, the imaginative stuff. That's what I'm here for as a storyteller, is to tell you a great story. Yeah, I said earlier, the reason I did what I did in the beginning, I do want to do something that's celebrated and touched upon my Mexican heritage, of course. But I'm not trying to sell the audience on that only. That's not the only thing, I'm offering you, because some people won't want that. But like, oh, this is like a kind of like a gothic superhero story. This guy, he's dead, and he's got his ex-girlfriend. She's in the story. Are they going to get together again? And his best friend is falling apart, drinking himself to death because I just think that's a great way to do these superhero comics.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, like you said with Ditko, I don't really think of him as necessarily who is trying to be evangelistic with like what he believes necessarily. He's not like trying to convert people. And the same with you. Like, I feel like it's really just expression is what it is, and you have something in you, and you want to express, your kind of roots and your thoughts and things, but it's not like you're trying to sway anybody. It's more just an expression of who you are. And something that I think is really cool too, a lot of times when you're an artist and a writer, I always think it's really neat to see how people kind of create their comics when they're both of those things. I'm curious, when you're creating your story, do you write like a script, or do you kind of have an idea or drawing, or how does it go with you?
Yeah, I love talking about this because people always find it interesting. So yeah, I don't write a script, like you can look through every drawer, every box, every hidden cupboard here, and you're not going to find like, oh, here's that typewritten script for the coma, page 1, panel 1. You're not going to find those. Not because I shredded them. I never made a script. What I did, here's the beautiful thing about being a kid, right? When you're a kid and you're getting into comics, and then even 1 second, it's just right here, and you pick up Origins of Marvel Comics, right, by Stan Lee. Yeah. He talks in there about, this was in the 70s. I got that book as, 10, 11-year-old. He talks about the Marvel method. Some of your viewers, I'm sure, have heard of it. Yeah, I'm sure you got a lot of comic people here. The Marvel method is this, and as a kid, I'm learning this. So, and there's truth and not truth to it because Stan Lee wrote it. We all love Stan Lee, God rest his soul, but that man left a big mess on aisle 5 as far as what happened, who did what. But so the method was Stan would have a plot for the month. Vulture comes in and robs a bank, and Aunt May's sick. So Steve Ditko, artist, go make that comic. So that's like a paragraph. That's almost like a tweet. The plot, 160 characters.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the whole script in 160 characters.
We should make a comic like that. Every day I'll tweet you a plot, and then you make a little mini comic.
That would be awesome.
So the artists, folks at home, whether it's Kirby, Ditko in the beginning, or all the other great artists, they go home with this idea. Oh, okay, he wants the Vulture in this issue, and then pick up a subplot from the previous book. So the artist draws the story. Maybe I don't think they didn't write notes. They would just draw it out, and then they bring the pages back completed. They bring the pages back to Stan, and in Ditko's case, he would tell Stan what he did, and maybe like a rough dialogue outline. Basically, Stan would take those pages. Stan says, and he would dialogue it based on just the art. I mean, that part's pretty good skill. I don't care what people say about that. So anyway, as a kid, right there in my head, oh, okay, that's how you make a comic. You think, and I'm just, I wasn't thinking of myself as a cartoonist, just a one person, but okay, you think of the story first, think of it, go and draw the whole story, and then put the words in the little balloons and make, So that's how I make comics. Think of a storyline. I've done mostly stories. I mean, I've just been doing graphic novels. I'm on the second one now. So I've done 30-page comics, 24, 18, 3-page comics, 1-page comics, 2-page comics. Just think of a storyline. I always create characters first. Okay, so my sketchbooks, you'll see hundreds of characters that I've designed. Because that's how what would this guy called the Coma look like? In fact, he wouldn't even have the name the Coma. It's like, I want a person kind of like a Doctor Strange story. I'm like, I just see bandages on his head. And then I do some costume designs. I don't like him. I'll just put him in a t-shirt and pajama pants and like a sleeping coat, whatever you call it. Like he's just like a patient. And like, okay, so he's in a coma, so he's probably in the hospital bed. Maybe he goes to other. Anyway, so it starts with character designs, and then I think of a story for weeks or months. And then when I'm ready, okay, let me get my blank sheet of paper. Like we used to call it typing paper, but I think you call it photocopy paper now, right? I just start drawing each page as a really rough comic. I draw the boxes, I draw the figures, I draw sloppy, I draw it quick. It's not chicken scratch, but it's not final artwork. And I finish it with a 30-page. When the 30 pages are done, then I edit it. These 2 pages, you know what? I can combine them on 1 page, or I can expand this. And then when I'm happy with that, then I draw it on the large 11 by 17 bristle paper. So I draw nicer. Sometimes I might change the angle based on my rough draft. I ink it, I scan the pages, and then I open it up in Illustrator. Okay, now I gotta dialogue it. So panel 1, what was the narration, what was it saying, what was she saying in return? And I only wrote notes in the rough draft sometimes what they're saying. Sometimes I wouldn't even put the word balloon because it wasn't important to me like exactly what they were saying. I just know by what I drew that they're talking about, I don't know, maybe the time they broke up. So let me get to that. Let me think about the dialogue later. The thing is, get the emotional characteristics down, and I think maybe that's why my characters have a lot of emotion, because when I'm drawing them, Marshall, it's not like I know what they're saying exactly. Oh, my heart's broken because I'm never going to see her again. But I draw him where he looks heartbroken and he's slumped over in the shoulder. You know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
again, I'm just self-analyzing myself. I think that's why my characters, when you just look through the comic without even, like, just squint your eyes and don't read it, just look through it, I think you'll get some emotional content out of just as you look through the story. At least that's my hope. But that's basically my process. The dialogue comes last, and then of course I edit it. I'll do all the pages, and then, oh my god, that sounds horrible. And I think anyone would say their first draft is horrible.
Yeah.
That's the process. I'm a one-man Marvel method.
Nice. I like that. And honestly, I've often been very much inspired by the Marvel method myself. That's the first template I learned about as far as making comics. You had that book. I had How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, which I'm sure you probably had too. That's how I learned how to draw, and he talks about the Marvel method in there as well. And so, I totally get that. And I tend to do something similar. In fact, just yesterday, I wrote a script for an 8-page comic for an anthology that some of my people here will know about, the 9-volt anthology. We're doing like a pulp fiction type of anthology, and mine is going to be like a jungle girl. Her name is Janaconda, and I thought that it would be. I was having a hard time thinking, like, how am I going to make this? Like, I'm actually probably not going to be the one drawing it. We'll see. But I wrote the kind of script, and I was thinking, like, how can I figure out what this is going to be? Like, it's starting to get close to the time that this needs to be written and stuff. And sometimes this happens. This happens with me with music too. Sometimes I'll find the title of a song, but it's like I thought of a couple, like, just oddball titles, just things that were kind of fun and maybe goofy. And I just thought of this title called Janaconda versus the Tiger King. And I was like, all of a sudden the story just started coming and coming and coming, and I'm like, this is going to be pretty cool, I think. And then I just wrote the story, and really all it is, it's not even a full script. In fact, it might even be sort of a silent comic, but it's more of like the beats of the story throughout 8 pages,
Right.
And we'll see how it comes out. And I have done the same thing where, in fact, the last comic I did was Expando. I drew it first and scripted it later. I've done that a few times. And it's a fun way to work, I think.
Yeah, in your case, you're not sure if you're going to draw it or not. So, yeah, it probably should be written out in case you got to give it to somebody. So they have a pretty good, at least, framework of, this is what Marshall's thinking for the story. But if you draw yourself, you've already kind of done like a draft in your head. You've done like a walkthrough of what is supposed to happen in that story. Yeah. I was going to share something here. So, having said what I said about I've never written a script, so because I embarked on this ridiculous plan at my age to do like a 10 graphic novel series with El Muerto, I'm working on number 2 right now. But here's the third. I've shared this before, so I can't say it's an exclusive. The third book is called The Man from Mictlan. I'm not going to show it but look what I did. I wrote the story. Because I figured, you know what? I'm doing 120-page story comics.
Yeah.
It can't hurt to just get the story out of my head. So it's just narrated. It's not like page 1, page 1. It's just like, it's almost like a novel. Dio ends up in Tijuana, and then he's going to check into the hotel. So it was nice to sit there and write. I haven't written this much, by hand since probably college. It was nice to go to the library or wherever and just like for a couple hours with my headphones and my music. Usually John Carpenter scores or Morricone or Danny Elfman, if anyone's wondering. So it's nice that I have it, because sometimes I'll just pick it up and I'll go like, oh, okay, here's that part where this happens. So when I'm done with the graphic novel I'm working on now, I will give this another read, and then I will do my thumbnail draft. 120 pages of thumbnail. But now, like I said, like you, now I have a physical roadmap, and I can change it. I mean, it's my plot. I can change it, but I like that it's solidified in my head, basically. So I was so excited about this process, and I really like this particular book. I went back to the store to buy these, and they had like 2 more. So this is so dumb. I was all like panicking and upset, like, oh no, I need 8 of them because I got to do all 8 remaining books that way. And I asked the lady at the store downtown LA, "Did you have another store?" Right? Yeah. It was like what's called West LA. Like, oh, I hate it. Way on the other side, and the traffic here is horrible.
Oh,
I go, "Can you see if they have them?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "They got 7." I go, "Hold 6 of them for me." And it's like, okay, let me get in my car at 10:30 in the morning. I had to drive 45 minutes. I parked. I walked in, and I was so happy when I got 7 of these in my bag and walked. Like, now I know I have my 6-7 books to write my storylines in. I don't know why it made me so happy, because before I never even cared about that, but
hey, and now you can have like on your shelf the volumes of the scripts.
yes, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
There's not one for book 1 or book 2 because I start, but yeah, I'll have book 3 onwards. So
yeah, there you go. That's awesome. So one other thing too that I think is really interesting with what I've seen from you is you have been heavily involved with the comic community, with Latino, I guess, community, or and all that with what you do. I mean, we got Jose Gonzalez here, just part of the like I've only known him through you. We got we had our buddy Jim Lujan here, who he's been part of it. He makes awesome animation, and then we got a bunch of other people that I've found out through you and Ted Secco. Like you've podcasted with him, and we've had conversations and stuff. I mean, so many other people. Like, what has it been like? 'Cause right now on the internet, the comic community is taking some weird turns from time to time. But for me personally, it's always been a very positive experience, and I get that from you. It seems like too. It's usually a pretty positive, listening, encouraging experience between people. Is that kind of what you found?
yeah, I mean, you're gonna be attracted to people with a positive attitude. I mean, that's simple. That's just human nature. So, and especially if we're comic creators, why the hell are you gonna want to be, hanging out with a bunch of naysayers and pissants? So yeah, I think we're all attracted. Yeah, we got similar friends in certain circles, and then you got your own circles. I got my own. It's nice to have friends like that. I have friends in my town or nearby where I can physically go. Well, in the old days, when you can go see people, but
Yeah.
but you have your local friends. Maybe you guys travel together to shows and pool. That's all fun stuff too. But like you said, late at night, you can talk to someone in. I can talk to someone in Pennsylvania or Texas or New Jersey, and just share some ideas and notes. And it's just nice to think that it's just that camaraderie, right? A person with a similar interest or path. Hey, she's doing comics on her own too, and she's doing different comics that I do, but she's still doing comics. She knows what I know what she's going through. So it's just nice to connect like that. So yeah, that builds a community. The questions here. I mean, I hate to pass some of these up. Outer Limit was asking, what do you think of Robbie Reyes, the ghostwriter from Marvel? Like Felipe Smith, I guess, created that. I read I think the first miniseries. I mean, I'm such a sucker. I just said Bronze Age, Johnny Blaze's ghostwriter, but I know that was probably for you, Marshall, your age group. What was that second ghostwriter? Wasn't there Danny Ketchum or something? I don't know. In the 90s.
I'm not really sure.
So yeah, there's this new one. You made him Latino. I mean, yeah, like I said, the art was great. The story was, I'm glad they kind of did a new version of it. this is a bad thing to say, but like my big interest is not like Marvel DC doing Latino characters or they turn a character Latino because that's the big thing. It's like there's a lot of us. I know our books aren't easy to find like a regular comic. You just walk in any shop in the country, you can find that. But there's a lot of us Latino creators. I grew up Latino parents and speaking two languages and such, and creating my own character El Muerto. Heavily based on Mexican culture and mythology, and we wouldn't mind support also. So, um, and then there was somebody else. Another question I thought was interesting. Christopher W. I had a question about copywriting your IPs. Is that something you should worry about in the beginning process or end product? Well, copyright it once it's done. The first issue, the first book. Nowadays you guys would just download the form. I had to mail it. Down the form, U.S. Copyright Office, and copyright your comic, your graphic novel, whatever. Once it's done, I would think. Someone goes, "What is IP?" Is that a dumb question? No, it stands for intellectual property. That's basically Mickey Mouse, Pac-Man, right? The Punisher. Those are intellectual properties. I don't know the true definition, but it's a character. I think it's more of a character, a concept, maybe. So
yeah,
that's what
something you
stands
create a story or something too. I think maybe goes under that. Yeah, I think with IP, yeah, like you're saying, like once you create it, it's actually technically copyrighted, but it is a good idea to send it to the copyright office, and it will be protected in a court of law if there's ever an issue. So it's not the worst thing in the world. It's tough though if you're just creating something you can barely pay for the money to actually get the thing out there. Let alone now you got to go and pay some money to the government to get them to copyright it and stuff like that. But one way you can do it is sometimes people will try to copyright like one character, and then now they got to copyright all the characters in their comic. If you just create your comic and then send that as a copyright, everything in that comic becomes copyrighted. So that's one little thing to make sure you do if you decide to go the copyright route. Speaking about also community, one other thing I wanted to get to real quick too is you with other people have created, and I don't know, is this still going on? You had the cartoonistas you were conventioning with and doing other things.
Oh my gosh, is Jim Luhan still here? Yeah, Jim Luhan actually. Jim Luhan, the animator, he lives in my area, and this is years ago. Man, gosh, yeah. So say let's put together a group of because we have again we're talking about community. We had already met. There was like a whole bunch of us going out for all the time anyway or whatever. Hey, let's brand it as the Cartoonistas. So we did live art shows, signings together. I think live art was our big thing. But everybody started getting busy on their own. I know Jim's animation was just going in high gear, and I don't know, I was done with the movie by then, but just doing other stuff, maybe starting the Latino Expo, Comic Expo, and so yeah, we kind of just, I wouldn't say we disbanded it. It just got too busy to maintain it. So yeah, it's funny you ask about that. The Cartoonistas, I haven't been asked for that for years. Yeah, we're not really a functioning unit anymore. Once in a while, I'll notice on my Facebook messages, things, whatever, private messages, like, oh, so-and-so wants to join the Cartoonista Facebook group. I'm like, oh my God, we still have a Facebook group, and that dear person wants to join it. Like, I mean, I hate to say this, I don't even go back and add him in, because why add him in is something that's not even something going on. Anyway, I just had to share that since you brought it up.
Jose Gonzalez.
Yeah. Like fashionista, better. Thank you, Jose.
That's awesome. But it's really cool. Like, I think the point with that too, though, is like a lot of times people, they want to have a community or they want to have people that they can work with. And, if you want that, one thing that you can do is create that.
Right.
Create it yourself. Find your own friends and say, hey, let's do a drink and draw. It doesn't even have to have a fancy name like a cartoon.
No.
Whatever. and you're just like, let's just get together every Friday at this time or something, or whatever you want to do, and you can create that community for yourself, and sometimes it can grow into something cool.
I would guess that, for it depends where you live. If you got other artists in your area, I imagine most artists have like a group of friends, fellow artists that they just get together, like you said, without even branding it. We're just getting together. So we were kind of like that, but we were kind of like, well, if all of us are tabling at that show anyway, then maybe let's do another show where we're all banded together. So it was a very loose thing. I think the cool thing was, like you said, we gave it a name. You put a name on anything, people look at it like it's a big thing now, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, we're just those 8 people that hang out at the burrito shop, but now we got a name, we got a name and a Facebook page. I will say this about groups, I don't mean a partnership like you and 3 other people are making a comic, because you got to get it done. But like, I think with the group, you want one that's great, you want to be in one that's great, but you got to do your own work though, man. Like, it's like if you want to be a cartoonist and then you meet a group of other people, you hang out, and then once you guys, once pizza's done, everybody goes home. I hope you're still motivated to make that comic. If you just work by yourself, you can't rely on the group. You can't like, oh, I can only work if everybody's around me. I mean, if that's how you guys work, but because then you become dependent on other factors to get your work done. And again, these could be your dearest friends. It has nothing to do with the bad thing. Just saying, I just learned for myself. Like, the less, I don't say attachments, because that's like personal. I'm not talking about you as a person. I meant you as a creator. The less extra things you need around you to get your work done, I think you'll be much more ready to go. Like, whenever you got to do it. I'm talking just as a creative person. I'm not saying as a human, shut yourself off from the world. That's your right. I'm not saying that's what it takes to make art.
Yeah, I think that's a
but
good
to make
point.
art.
I think that's a good point, because you can you can use that as an excuse. You can have a group, a positive thing where you have it's like accountability. So it's like every time you meet, hey, what did you do this week? What did you do this week? And you feel almost obligated to have done something for that week. But it could also be like you said, well, this is the only time I'm going to do art. Well, that's probably not a healthy way to go about it. And I've created a group through our Discord, play creators, and one of our mantras, and I love this, mantra of the group that I didn't even create this mantra, but is make comics, not excuses. Like, that's what we're all doing, all producing and making it happen, and I think that's really cool.
And make comics, not excuses. That's cool.
Yeah, that was my thing came up with that. It's really cool. Jose Gonzalez says we're missing out. So true. Raul Jr., he had that awesome podcast, Man vs. Art. I love that.
Oh, right. I remember that.
So, yeah, man, so many cool things that you can do with this, and a lot of cool memories, too, hanging out and things. So with that,
for me, like I love the memories. Like, the memories are great. But, but I got to, it's a cliche, but make new memories. In other words, keep doing stuff. For me, 22 years, I'm going to keep doing. I want to, in 32 years, or in another 10 years, I look back. Oh, I've had 32-year career, and this is all great. And now I want to look back at 42 and 50. You know what I mean? So
speaking about that, like you were saying, like you guys got scared at the end of the stick, and you want to do more. So basically, is it what you're looking for? Is it you're really looking into doing those 8 volumes? Is that your main thing you're looking forward to at this point?
Yeah, I was actually telling my friend Jim. It's funny you talk about like friends. Yeah, like Jim's one of my friend, but definitely would like to talk to art. And I like that he's an animation person and I'm comic, so you don't have to have the friend in the exact same field, but it's still creating, it's still art. But I told him, 10 books total, 8 more to go. I don't know. It gives me like it gives me like a solid. It's like I built this brick path with the 10 books. Now I gotta walk it and maybe finish it. But yeah, it gives me a certain. That's going back to the conversation. That's probably the fire I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, because that's it's not a road. It's a steep hill. It's a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I'm older than I was 22 years ago. And I told you I was not a 20-year-old kid starting comics.
Yeah.
So, but it gives me a certain amount. Like, yeah, I want to have. I've done a lot of other comics, but I want to have that association, like Chester Gould and Dick Tracy, Dr. Seuss, The Cat in the Hat. I have no problem having that single character identification, because I know I've done other stuff and there'll be other characters showing up. But I don't know. There's a certain thing about the one creator, one character thing, which there's no shortage of that in comics, and it's not the only way to go about it either. But
yeah, I think I've talked about that before too, and I haven't quite gotten to that place myself. But having that kind of flagship title, I think is helpful sometimes. You think of Eric Larson, and he's done a lot of different things, but he really think of John Dragon, and that's kind of his main deal, and other people too. So I definitely like that approach. I'm just curious, when this 10 volumes is fully finished, do you actually have an ending in mind for El Muerto?
do I have what?
Do you have like an ending in mind for that final book for El Muerto?
Oh, absolutely. See, that's the beautiful thing. I hear from other creators, like they have arc, like they know the ending, and they know what they want to do before them. But the fun part's going to be building the books. But I'll tell you this. This is what I'll tell you. But it's all coded, right? I'm not going to anybody's show. No offense, and tell them spill the beans on that. But I have the actual ending. I think Quentin Tarantino is the guy who can totally relate to this. I have the visually mapped out to a piece of music from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Nice.
Not the main title, it's the classic. But I won't tell people the piece. But there's a piece of music in the film. It's one of the top ones. And for years, I had the ending for El Muerto, like a certain scene. It's not the whole book, it's like a certain scene of it. And then for some reason, I was listening to that music, it's a favorite film of mine. But at one point, I plugged in a visual in my head to the music, and then I'm closing my eyes so I can think about it. So I started mapping out physically what he's doing, where he's at, the beat of the music. And I'm probably, when I get to that, when I'm a shaky old man, I'm sure I'm going to be having that music on, and I'm going to time it because, just as a promo piece, just like to animate it, motion comic style, whatever, to that music before it gets pulled off copyright on YouTube. But it just works so well. Like I said, I know Tarantino, I'm sure, or a lot of directors, because we all see movies, right? And then you see a movie where they put a song, and it could be just a song like Eddie Money, right? 2 Tickets to Paradise. Just pull a random song out.
Yeah.
And then the action, they worked on it. The guy, the edited, it's so perfect. The actor walks in the car and he walks out and he looks at a broken photograph on the wall and he gets in his car, and it went perfect to the music. I've always thought that's so interesting. So that my ending sequence for El Muerto is so now people are going to rush out and listen to the soundtrack and try to figure but there's no way they'll know because they don't know the ending. Maybe they'll guess the music, like, is that the piece of music? But maybe I'll come on the show in 15 years, oh God, or 20, whatever, and we'll talk about it, Marshall.
Well, I mean, honestly, the thing is one thing I've always been impressed about what you do is you just keep creating, you keep putting out new books, new ideas. You don't let your ideas fester. You just make it, and I think that all of that proves to me that once you, as you're getting this momentum with El Muerto, I bet it'll start going a little quicker, because you've already got a lot of the stuff. The world is built, and now you just got to execute that story that's like in you, And I think it might be surprising how quick you start getting to it,
I'm in many ways, I'm not Jack Kirby, and one way I'm not Kirby is, man, he could almost draw and produce as fast as he could think. I mean, it's so beautiful about him like that. So, yeah, I'm like in slow motion mode, but that's the fire. That's the thing. Like, okay, that like if I'm a building, down in my gut is a little old black furnace, and that fire is hot. Believe me, it's hot. Look, I keep throwing ideas in there, and not to be fatalistic, but we've been talking over an hour. The clock has not stopped. The calendar tomorrow you're gonna tear off Friday, and it's Thursday. It's gonna be Friday, and then you're gonna tear off July. It's gonna be August, and then it's gonna be 2021 and 2025, and then time moves on. So
I'm looking forward to getting to that ending. So I'm gonna be rooting for you for sure. And
well, thank you. God bless you. But in the meantime, folks, check out the preview comic that's part of the Kickstarter for Muerto Kickstarter. I'm working on the second graphic now. I don't know if I explained it exactly. So what the Kickstarter reward is, it's the I thought I had to print out. It's a preview copy of the next book. So here we go. So it's the first 26 pages of Casa del Diablo, House of the Devil. So that's what one of the rewards is. Another reward, since I talked about process here, it's different cover. It's the XL Deluxe version. It's the same 26 pages, and then you get another 26, 27 pages of the thumbnails. So all in all, this is a 64-page book. And then I have this other book. It's an art book called, it's hard to pronounce even in Spanish for me, Endiableado. It kind of means, you see the word Diablo there? Devil. And Endiableado means like possessed, devilish. So it's this character concept I have for something called Devil Muerto, inspired by Kona Guy's Devilman. It's the whole thing I can talk about for 2 hours. But so I had this idea of a Devil Muerto character. It just came to my head one morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. I woke up and I had to turn my lights on and I had to draw him. Like, what does he look like? And I did a whole bunch. I started doing all these production pieces in color, and I'd put them online, and people, those are pretty cool. So when I started putting my Kickstarter together, okay, I'm going to have 2 books. I go, you know what? Let me put an art book together. Just an art book, no story to it, of all the pieces I've done. So that's one of the books available too. So if you get this art book, hopefully you like the art, because that's really too. There'll be some background info. But just think, when the graphic novel comes out, when Devil Muerto shows up, you'll be one of the ones like, oh, I remember that character. It's in this art book I got years ago. So.
Awesome. Nice. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to getting my copies, and I think everybody should definitely go check out the Kickstarter and help them get further with that, and also check out his website. The website's down in the description as well. There's some pretty cool stuff on there. I haven't actually looked on the store lately, but this is one of my favorite things I ever got from Javier Hernandez.
Oh my gosh, poster comics.
This one is Spider Calaca, and I love it. It's so fun, and it's 11 by 17. I got to put this back up on my wall. It was in a frame, and my old apartment. I'm going to put that back up on my wall soon. But yeah, I used to sell those things.
What was that?
Do you still sell those one-page comics?
I put them together in a book because it's expensive to ship it. Not because it weighs them much, but it has to do with size. And then I put them together in a collection because I did a whole series of one-page comics. Those comics are out of print, but what I want to do is do a collection of all my short stories, like those poster comics, the 3-page stories I've done, 4-page stories, and those are in color because those black and white. For aesthetic reasons, obviously for financial and time. Like, look, if I do a graphic novel, Like it takes forever to pencil and ink it and letter it.
Right.
Man, like the idea of going back and then coloring 120 for me, that would take so much, like another 6 months maybe. So Muerto's black and white, and I do love the aesthetic, but those like the one Marshall shared, the Spider Calaca and the others, I want to collect those, so I want to have a color comic collection out there. But maybe I'll do that in the new year. Right now I gotta finish up the Kickstarter and then do all the post production and get the books out, and I gotta get back to that damn graphic novel and get that done for hopefully very early 2021 release.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, man. Well, it's been great catching up with you again. Once again, let people know where they can find you on social media. And yeah.
Yes, just Jose Gonzalez said "bedeviled." Yeah, that's a good. That's another good definition of endiablado. Yeah, they could find me on. I guess most people are big on Instagram nowadays, so you can go Javier Los Comics, LOCCOMEX. You can go to my YouTube page. Just go to YouTube and enter Los Comics TV, LOSCOMEX TV. But yeah, Marshall's got my website here on his underneath his on the YouTube page there, Hozilla.com, and on the right side, I list all my social networks: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and my shop. But the main thing I'd really direct everyone to at least check out the Kickstarter, because only a few days depending on when this it ends. Sunday night, July 19th, 6 p.m. Pacific time. So check out the Kickstarter. I got a ton of stuff on there. There's a PDF version of the comic if you're not into paper products. There's the comic. There's the deluxe comic. There's combos of it. And in high rows out there are some original art pages, and then you get all the comics and all the stuff. We've hit our first stretch goal. My initial funding goal asking for 2,000. And thankfully, all the wonderful people, we hit that within 24 hours. We hit our first stretch goal, which is going to be so these are called corner box, right? It's from Marvel. In fact, Ditko came up with these ideas in the 60s. So I did an Muerto one as a button. It's 2 by 3 inches. So that stretch goal has been unlocked. So anyone who joins gets any of the physical reward level, you're going to also get that corner box button. And the good Lord willing, we're about $250 away from hitting stretch goal number 2, $5,000 stretch goal. That I think we're going to hit that. I don't want to be, you want to be cocky about overconfident, but we might hit it. So everyone is also going to get, if we hit it, a mini print set of, you get 5 to like 4 by 6 color prints of El Muerto, different ones from the archives, I call it. So most likely you're going to be getting 2 extra goodies in whatever level you get. So, check the independent comic, interesting comic. It's gothic, it's horror, it's kind of humorous, people say my stuff's retro. I don't mean that bad, and it's not a bad thing, but it's like, well, I think the people in the comic, they're very contemporary. But yeah, I'm very influenced by the older art style. Just check it out, folks. Decide for yourself on the Kickstarter page.
Well, I definitely recommend it, and once again, we're living in crazy times, and something like this is one of those things that I said in my last interview, but as well brings you kind of into that just awesome comic book realm of escapism and enjoying a whole different world. And like I said, I definitely recommend it. Definitely check out the Kickstarter. And that's it, guys. Thank you for everybody for hanging out with us. And thank you everybody who's watching on the replay. Definitely check us out. And other than that, we will see you next time. Alrighty, thank you again, Javier.
Thank you, Marshall. It's great talking to you on your show here. And yeah, thanks to all the people chatting away. I'm sorry, I'm sure we missed some questions. But thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys.
Awesome.